Let's talk my favorite team. Let's talk about what Calvin Watkins writes about in the Dallas Morning News, that Ezekiel Elliott will be different than Todd Gurley has been because the Rams obviously cut Gurley and ate $20 million of dead money off his contract. Calvin Watkins also writes that Zeke will be different than Devontae Freeman. And obviously the Falcons cut him with 3 years and $21 million left on his deal. So Zeke's deal makes him the highest paid in the league of the running backs, $15 million a year. The total deal is 4 years and $102.9 million with incentives. $45 million of that is guaranteed. So Calvin Watkins concludes that the new coach, Mike McCarthy, has big new plans for Zeke and that he won't be anything like the bus that Todd Gurley and Devontae Freeman turned into in their original team's eyes. So, Shannon Sharpe, I ask you, will Zeke wind up next year being more worth the money that Jerry Jones gave him last year?
Skip, Zeke is in a situation that's totally different than those two guys that you mentioned, Todd Gurley and Devontae Freeman. Those guys had injury. Todd Gurley had a knee injury. Devontae Freeman had a knee injury. He had a foot, he had sports hernia, and he's been plagued with concussions. So, Skip, those situations are entirely different. If you look at Todd Gurley averaged 3.8 yards a carry, Devontae Freeman averaged 3.6. Zeke averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Zeke had 1,350 yards, which was fourth in the NFL. I get it. He didn't lead the league in rushing like he did 2 of his first 3 years. He didn't lead the league in yards per game like he did in his first 3 years. But Zeke is still a hell of a back. The thing that hurt Zeke was they played from behind. So the Cowboys weren't able to utilize him like they normally could. And, Skip, you mentioned Travis Frederick, although he made the Pro Bowl, was not himself. You admitted the offensive line. Zach Martin had a knee injury early, played the entire season. Tyron Smith was listed on the injury report some. He played the entire season. I think Lyle Collins might have missed 1 game, if I'm not mistaken. I think he missed 1 game. So with the influx of the offensive line and not playing to their maximum potential, Zeke still was the 4th leading rusher. Now, we saw what happened, just take for the AFC Championship game. We saw when the Titans had the lead, Skip, everything was going well. They running Derrick Henry, boom, he getting 4, 5, 3 yards a carry. The moment they fell behind and they couldn't rely on Derrick Henry, the wheels fell off. Well, just imagine if you're down 28 points, you're down 17 points, you're down 14 points. You can't run yourself back into the ball game. You have to throw it. Skip, Zeke's situation is so different than those guys because Zeke has only missed a game via suspension or sitting out because they had nothing else to accomplish. Zeke's situation is so different than theirs. Todd Gurley, Skip, he averaged 3.8, which was a full yard less than what he had just averaged the year before. So I don't like it, but it made sense for why the Rams did what they did. But it also goes to show you players, hey, look here, don't y'all be cutting no discounts. Because you see what happens when you give discounts? 3 years left. Now, Skip, we didn't talk about this, but you remember, 2 days ago, I think, maybe Friday, Bill O'Brien said the reason why they traded DeAndre Hopkins because he wanted a raise with 3 years left. But you see these teams have no problem cutting a player with 3 years left. We won't get your raise with 3 years, but we will release you if you don't meet our expectations. But if you exceed our expectations, remember you signed the contract. But Zeke is so different than these previous 2 guys that you mentioned, Skip. Zeke is going to be there for the foreseeable future.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. I want to embrace every word you just uttered because next year to me is all about Ezekiel Elliott. I told you the other day, I believe it was Friday, that I believe the Cowboy defense has been slightly improved by the free agent signings, bargain basement, great deals, Gerald McCoy, obviously, Dontari Poe, maybe Aldon Smith, maybe Randy Gregory, Clinton Dix. I think it'll be a little better, a little more veteran, a little beefier, a little stronger, a little stouter. So I'm happy about that. And because I got real happy about it, I told you the other day that I believe this team can win 10 games and go 10-6. the over-under, according to Fox Bet, is 9.5 games, and you took under. I believe you took 8-8 for next year, missed the playoffs, Dallas Cowboys, although you said maybe with the 7 seed they could sort of eke or leak into that last
Get it with 9 wins,
berth.
yes.
Okay, whatever, but you also were talking about 8-8. My issue is with the offense. It led the league in yards last year, in large part because of the quarterback, who had a terrific yardage year. But to your point, there were a lot of empty calories in the yards. And Zeke didn't contribute the way I thought he was after he got paid. And I'm talking about he got paid. And yet, I expected Zeke last year to have an Emmitt Smith year, the year I was covering the Cowboys in '93 when Emmitt held out the first 2 games. And then, boom, he comes back, they're 0-2, and Emmitt goes on in 14 games to win NFL regular season MVP, then leads them through the playoffs to the Super Bowl and is the Super Bowl MVP. Well, Emmitt got his money. I thought he still deserved even more than he got from Jerry Jones, but he immediately lived up to every penny that Jerry gave him. And in this case, Zeke lived down to every penny that Jerry gave him. And I kept telling you, he looks different to me. He looks like he's running in Cabo sand. And obviously he was working out in Cabo San Lucas during his holdout through training camp. And finally, Jerry did what Jerry always does. I thought Jerry overpaid him because Jerry loves him like a son. And as Jerry always says, when have you known me not to get one of these deals done? Well, only one time, and that's this time right now with Dak Prescott. But he did get Zeke done, and yet the numbers are starting to scare me, Shannon, because if we look at average yards per game in his 4 years in the NFL, Zeke has gone 109 as a rookie, 109 yards a game he averaged, then 98 in his second year, 96 in his third year when he had to miss the 6 games suspended, and then only 85 yards a game last year. And to your point, in 2 of his first 3 years, the full seasons, he did lead the league in total rushing yards. And he's led it every year in yards per game, but they keep falling and falling. And I'm saying, wait a second, last year in yards per rush per game, he was only 20th. And in big plays, 20-plus yard plays last year, he was tied for 23rd because he only had 4 of them. And I told you the most glaring stat of all to me, the killer stat of the year was on first down, Emmitt had the second most attempts in the NFL last year, and he was 18th in yards per rush on first down. 2 plus 2 equal, whoops, you're in trouble. So again, second most attempts on first down, 18th in yards per rush on first down. Well, that's horrifying to me because that's not what we paid for. That's not what Jerry paid for. So will Mike McCarthy come in with a new scheme, a new direction, more creativity? Will he help Kellen Moore figure out some new toss plays or some new sort of, cutback plays where they'll take advantage of some of Zeke's gifts that we're not taking advantage of last year? And I agree with you, he's not hurt, but that's what scares me. He wasn't hurt last year, and we didn't get a whole lot of bang for our bucks in an 8-8 year in the final year of Jason Garrett.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.